or is that determined by the district?
Well, let me tell you, in 99% of the districts in the state, the 15% is retained centrally because the programs require extensive administrative function. So,
But 15% worth, that's a huge chunk.
that's
So
how
I mean,
much,
is that
well,
really how much it costs to maintain these programs?
But Graciela,
and we
tenemos
also
up to
provide,
15.
yeah, well,
You can
yes,
get
up to
less.
15, but we retain the 15% centrally, and we do two things. One, there's the administrative function, but we also provide direct support to schools as well. So we do both direct support and administrative.
And is that 15% truly being utilized appropriately instead of just giving it to the schools? I mean, does the district central office really need that 15%?
Well, I would say that I would tell you absolutely yes. Yeah. If we didn't need it, we wouldn't need it.
So the dollar amount that is written for us is what the schools are actually getting?
Yes, that's their projected allocation that they've just received.
Remember, the
Once
actions
updated.
come in around November, December.
Yes. To the school side, so it's already minus the 15 that they're already taking.
Right, they're ready to go. So all you got is the 85%.
And the following pages, there's some very specific information about Title I and EIA that I'm not going to get into, but I just wanted to share with you, give you a sample of the kinds of information and training that the principals received. You know, tips about the whole idea behind behind the training is to make sure that we get better at being strategic about the way that we use the funding that we receive. When you look at it, the way that a school uses the money has to be driven by the data. What does the data say about the needs of the students at that school? That's first and foremost. And when we develop our school plans, we say that to our sites that you need to look at the data and identify what are the causes behind that data. If you have half of your students that are not proficient, why is that? And what are some of the needs that you have based on that data? And then you identify your action plans. And then you attach the money to those actions that you've identified. And that's the thing that we try to drive home. When Janelle was here with principals, she also reminded them that all of the decisions that we make about money have to be data-driven. The use of NCLB money requires that the use be not only data-driven, but also the practices around the use of the money have to be grounded in research. So you'll be asked two questions. One, does the data say that that's what you actually need at your school? And two, what is the research that shows that what you're doing with the money actually results in improved achievement for students? Because that's really the bottom line behind all of this money is, how does that money help accelerate the achievement of the students that are the neediest academically at your school site?
Okay, so since we've known about NCLB for a long time now, but you know, we really haven't looked at any data that documented what we did worked. We haven't been able to measure any of the actions that, especially at the PI schools, if some of the things were working or not. I know I asked the same question at the board meeting, but you know, every time we start talking about data, and I know at my school, I know what's happening, but at those underperforming schools where they may not have a parent sitting here at the DAC meeting, we don't know some of the district choices, you know, because at the board meeting it always says, you know, done by the administrators, the choices, but we don't know what the data actually.
Actually, we do know the data, and one of the things that we do and we ask principals is that when it comes down to planning, you have to review your data. There's an ongoing review of the data, and if you recall, in your school plan, there's a needs assessment that has to be done every year, and one of the questions we ask is if there is no data to substantiate the way that you're currently using your funding, then you need to go back to and look at those practices which do result in increased achievement for students. We do ask those questions, we do review plans, and we look at that, so we do know whether those practices are resulting in increased achievement for students. And that's the point that we try to make, because the money that we receive, again, is to be used for those things which the data clearly shows have been successful in increasing the achievement of the students that were targeted.
But like my resource teacher, she wants to go and look at a couple more schools that are doing things that are working, and so that's how we're measuring our school success. But I'm saying that schools that we see are continuing to not progress. What is being done at those schools, and how we know that the choices that their schools like council is making are good choices, and how, because the district is all involved in helping them because they're program improvement. And so if the district is the responsible entity to support those schools, how are we measuring what's working there? Because we're the DAC, and and we should be talking about things that are working at those PI schools.
We, again, look at the data, and there is, and even can be more concentrated support and monitoring next year of the schools, but we do review school data, and we do look at the movement, and we do sit down with principals to review what the practices are that are going on at that school, to find out, again, what are the root causes behind the achievement or lack thereof. That's really critical to be able to be.
Graciela, can you share with the membership here what kind of data they should be looking at their school site council?
Okay, so when we talk about looking at achievement data, there's two types of data. One we call summative data, and those are assessments that are given like once a year, twice a year. So an example of that would be the California Standards Test, the STAR test. That's what they call a summative assessment, and it assesses all of the standards that students should be proficient in for that, starting in 2nd grade through 6th grade at elementary, and then 7th through 11th grade. So that's one piece of data. Remember, you all know that that's the data that's used to determine whether, if you're a Title I school, whether you enter into program improvement status. The other is the academic program index, and that's, again, a state indicator. And there are, the goal is that those, there's like 10 deciles that go through, you get a score. Some schools have an academic program index of 400, 500, 600, 700, 800. The goal, 900 and higher, and the goal is that every school reach at least 800. They call it API. That's another set of data. And then there are lots of data points at the school. They have what are called curriculum embedded assessments. So if I'm in elementary school, there are open court, there are curriculum embedded assessments. We also have the benchmark assessments that tell us how well kids are becoming proficient on the California standards throughout the year. So that benchmark assessments is a way for a school to measure how kids are progressing.
In that benchmark, I understand that the 1 through 3 is different. You can't compare them from that last year, right? Because they're only assessing that time, a different subject matter.